my name is Adelaide Akins, and I'm a senior at Westerville South High School, and I'm in the Global Scholars Program. This is my podcast regarding the global issue of human trafficking. So this episode is going to be about different ways that human trafficking can look like, and just some statistics based off of that. So first off, what does it mean to be trafficked? It doesn't always look like someone getting kidnapped or like taken in a van and then taken far away. It can look like this, but I feel like in movies, that's the way it is visioned. So according to the Blue Campaign, it's the use of force, fraud, and coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. And there are really three main types of trafficking, according to the Human Rights Commission. There's sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. Sex trafficking is when someone is forced into a commercial sex act. It mostly affects women and children. However, it can affect men as well, of course. Women make up about 80% of sex trafficking victims. Sometimes when people are participating in sex trafficking, it's because they are getting money from the trafficker, and it is a form of prostitution. What can happen also is people can get addicted to drugs or alcohol, and someone is paying them money that they feel like they truly need. This type of sex trafficking is illegal, and people who participated are charged with prostitution and can get put in jail or have to pay a major fine depending on the severity and how much they've been doing it. Sex trafficking always doesn't look like this, however, it can also look like someone getting forced into it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about what forced labor is. Forced labor is when an individual is forced to perform like service or labor against their will. A lot of the times the traffickers will use like violence or threats or blackmailing in order to force someone to perform an act of labor. So I'm also going to talk about debt bondage, and I'm reading this off of End Slavery Now. It happens when people give themselves into slavery as security against a loan, or when they inherit a debt from a relative. So basically, the victim is hired by a trafficker, and the victim is working to pay off loans or debt. And while they're doing this, the employer or the trafficker continues to add on additional expenses, which is obviously, it's a form of slavery and a form of trafficking. So in my opinion, I think that society doesn't do a good job of raising awareness for human trafficking. I feel like a lot of young people especially just think that it's as simple as getting kidnapped and forced into certain situations, but it doesn't always look like that, and I feel like it's important that everyone knows the different ways that it can actually be. So lastly, I'm just going to talk about statistics, and I'm going to start in the U.S. So this is off of the World Population Review, and California consistently has the highest human trafficking rates in the U.S. with 1,507 cases reported in 2019. And this is the most current information that I have found. And out of those 1,507 cases, 1,118 of those were sex trafficking cases, and 158 were the labor trafficking. After California, it is followed by Texas with 1,080 cases, Florida with 896 cases, and New York with 454 cases. These four states with the highest human trafficking rates have the highest populations in the U.S., which can explain why their numbers of cases are significantly higher. So once again, this information was pulled off of the World Population Review. So now to look at a global perspective, one of the countries that has the highest amount of human trafficking is China, and I am reading this data off of the Borgen Project, and it says that human trafficking impacts approximately 236 million people in China. And this does account for roughly 17% of China's population of 1.39 billion people. And I would like to think that a lot of it would be labor trafficking, because if you look at most of the products that are in the U.S., most of them are made in China, which would make sense. After talking about what human trafficking is and just some statistics about it, I would like to share that there is a national human trafficking hotline, which is 1-888-373-7888. I would also like to share a couple of the names of organizations that do help fight human trafficking. And there's the Global Alliance Against Trafficking in Women, there's Stop the Traffic, and there's the Urban Justice Center's Sex Workers Project. This concludes my first episode. Thank you so much for listening.